Whoa.
I like doing that just to wake everybody up and scare everybody.
I have no ear.
Okay.
After all of this. I'm thinking,
Well, we appreciate everybody waiting for the conclusion of our council meeting to get to this workshop. It's been a long time coming. We've had several discussions on this item, and last time we left off, we were going to explore some different alternatives and maybe the pros and cons, and I think we're going to have Brian Hemiseth, our city engineer, as well as maybe some others go through.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll have some friends join them. Brian, do you want to start us off then, or who do you want to start us off? And
Well, Brian Hemiseth, city engineer. I met with some of the council members about this, and one of the council members can't
Correct.
here tonight, and that's Councilman Trevilian.
And I've got a letter, I appreciate that. I've got a letter that I will start off reading, I guess.
Yep.
Okay.
And we'll listen to that, and then I'll go into a presentation, and then we can, I'll answer any questions from council members, and then we can go into comments from the crowd.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
good, appreciate it.
You bet.
Okay, as he mentioned, this is a letter from Councilman Trevilian, who really wanted to be here but was unable to attend tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, as I am unable to attend the city council meeting on January 23rd, I would appreciate it if the following letter would be read during the workshop for the Ashworth Road project and make it part of the permanent record of the meeting. So we will go ahead and make this part of the permanent record for our workshop. I've had several discussions with our city engineering staff and residents about the Ashworth Road reconstruction project. Although I understand staff's reasoning for recommending a 3-lane configuration with a dedicated turn lane the entire stretch from 1st Street to 50th Street, I do not believe this is the best design. This is a residential roadway with over 150 driveways and 49 intersections. A large number of the residential properties have driveways that require the cars to back out onto Ashworth Road, and by having only 1 lane east and west, it will be difficult to get a break in traffic to be able to get onto Ashworth. With so many intersections that are controlled by a stop sign, it will be difficult to turn onto Ashworth. Also, there will be drivers waiting to turn into a driveway or side street and having to wait for a break in traffic. I am concerned that drivers will get frustrated with waiting and will, quote, take a chance, end quote, and cause a crash with another vehicle. There will also be the issues with delivery vehicles, trash collection trucks, and mail trucks stopping on Ashworth, causing traffic to stop and wait. This will cause a backup, and then drivers will be pulling into the turn lane to pass the stop vehicle and causing a crash with a vehicle wanting to turn. This will also be true if a car is going below the speed limit and cars pass the slow-moving car using the turn lane. What happens is there are delivery vehicles in both the eastbound and westbound lanes in close proximity to each other. Then cars in each direction will use the center turn lane to pass. I believe the best design is a 4-lane roadway with 10 or 10.5-foot lanes. I believe this could be done with the existing right-of-way. This will also eliminate the need for the right turn lanes, thereby eliminating the increased right-of-way needed from the adjacent property owners. I realize that staff doesn't want to have to deal with acquiring additional right-of-way from almost all of the property owners and would rather just deal with a few. That is why they want a 3-lane road with right turn lanes at some intersections. So if we do 4 lanes that are 10 to 10.5 feet wide, using the existing right-of-way, they won't have to deal with any property owners. I asked staff what will happen if the 3-lane design gets approved and a year or 2 after construction, it is shown that it doesn't work. Then what? They told me that once the first phase, 19th through 23rd, gets completed, then they would restripe the entire corridor for 3 lanes. They would then know if the 3-lane design will work or not, and if not, then they would not do it. There are several problems with this approach. First, the property owners that had land taken for the right turn lanes would already have lost their land for additional right-of-way that now is not needed. Also, we will now have to go back and redesign the entire project for 4 lanes. There will be additional right-of-way needed to make the wider 4 lanes, causing a delay in the project. We will have spent many hours of staff time, property owners' time, engineering consultants' time, and money on a design that will be thrown away to go back to the drawing board. Let's get it right the first time and construct Ashworth with 4 lanes that are either 10 or 10 and a half feet wide. Kevin L. Trevilian, City Councilman, Ward 1. Okay,
Okay.
Brian, if you want to lead us through
I will
brief
take it through.
presentation.
I'm going to try to be as brief as possible.
Okay? And we appreciate that because I believe everybody here has heard this presentation several times. So there's new
This one's a little
information.
different than what we've given in the past. Some of the council members have seen this. But, generally speaking, the current conditions of this road are a 4-lane minor arterial. It's one of the few east-west corridors we have through the entire city. It's a truck and bus route and detour during 235 closures or incidents. Everybody's seen this. They know that the current lane widths are narrow, that the driver comfort is an issue. We have issues with street capacity because of staggered driving, and you can see some of that here in this picture. And then we do have a high number of crashes, which I'm actually going to go through in more detail. So we've done a 6-year crash report history review of everything on Ashworth from 1st to 50th. And that's what every one of these dots represents. Now, we comb through this data, and we don't include anything that is on, as you can see on here, snow and ice, deer, alcohol, medical, et cetera, et cetera. But as you can see, there are a lot of crashes on Ashworth Road in that 6-year period. I'm going to go through specific types of crashes because this is going to mean something as we start talking about the 3-lane versus 4-lane and lane widths of 10 feet versus 11 feet. This first slide here is showing there's 86 failure to yield left turn collisions in the 6-year period. 26 were directly attributable to the fact that this is a 4-lane road and doesn't have a left turn lane. So there's 26 collisions in that 6-year period. Rear end collisions, there's 57, but 32 were directly attributed to a left turning vehicle, meaning that if there would have been a left turn lane, these collisions would not have happened. And then lane departure collisions, which that is more in line with the lane widths. And if you have narrow lanes and cars running alongside of each other and side swiping, striking vehicles while turning, and or running off the road. And those collisions are directly attributable to the lane widths. So what this is the same slide as before, but what we've done is we've colored in the dots of crashes that are directly attributable to not having left turn lanes, and those are the red dots, and the yellow dots are directly attributable to to having narrow lanes. And you can see there are a lot of colored dots. You'll notice that at 50th, Valley West, 8th Street, there's no colored dots there. Those intersections there's a high volume of traffic. That is why there's a higher volume of crashes there. And those intersections are already widened out to the maximum amount that we would ever widen them out to. So we're not going to correct any crashes no matter what we do to Ashworth at those intersections. So in summary, there's 147 total crashes. The lack of left turn lane is a contributor in between 40 and 50% of those, 10 to 20% on the narrower lanes. And then of all the crashes, 40% of them resulted in injuries, with 3 crashes resulting in serious injuries. And is that 40% of the total crashes, or of the crashes that are attributable?
4-lane sections.
Okay, that are attributable to the 4-lane sections.
Brian, can I ask a question?
Sure thing.
there?
Yep.
Could you just go back?
Sure.
So are you saying that 50 to 60% of the crashes are attributable to the current configuration on Ashworth?
Correct.
And these are 50 to 60% of crashes, again, I guess, for the current configuration, ruling out DUI or anything
Yep,
else?
we ruled out DUI, and we actually removed the crashes at First, 8th, Valley West, and 50th, because those are the ones that are already widened out to the maximum, and we're not going to be able to fix anything at those intersections.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Okay, so and I'm not going to take any credit for really any of this because Eric actually wrote this whole thing. So thank you, Eric, for putting this whole thing together. And one of the things we talked about, and he did, is we tried to find an equivalent section of street that is 4 lanes in town that we could compare crashes with. EP True is directly, essentially the next minor collector down. It is 12-foot lanes on that road. It is four-lane. So basically what Eric did is he removed crashes at Valley West Drive, similar to what he did in other places. He also took out the crashes that are in like the curved areas, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so there's areas that are very curvy, and then that we feel like that would have skewed it because Ashworth is straight. We want to look at the straight sections of EP True Parkway. And just as a reminder, EP True Parkway's traffic volumes are higher than the traffic volumes on Ashworth Road. So basically what we're finding is the lane departure crashes are 4 times higher for the same time period on Ashworth than they are on EP True. And all things equal, except the lane widths. And granted, there are more driveways, and that's probably something that folks will bring up. There's more driveways on Ashworth Road. But driveways shouldn't impact what we're talking about in this particular scenario is looking at lane departure, and the number of driveways shouldn't affect lane departure. Okay. All right, so one of the big things that we need to talk about today and have a decision on at the end of this meeting, or we would like to have a decision on, is whether we have a 3-lane road from 1st to 50th, or we have a 4-lane road from 1st to 50th. So I'm going to go through the feasibility of a 3-lane cross-section for Ashworth, and it basically, safety improvements is probably the biggest thing. We eliminate those 2 crash, the 40 to 50% of the crashes that I showed in an earlier slide, those virtually are eliminated because of the introduction of a left turn lane. So we've done a lot of research on different studies that have been done across the state, and obviously with the help of some of the residents that have given us some of these studies to review. We found that research is overwhelmingly clear 4 to 3-lane conversions provide safer operation. Looking at studies in Iowa for 15 before and after locations, you can read just as well as I can the reduction in crash rate, crash density, and injury crashes. We've also found in a lot of cases it helps with speed as well. It'll calm traffic and it'll slow speeds down. So it's one of the top safety countermeasures according to FHWA and the DOT. So another big thing is funding. So we are looking at using STBG dollars to fund a portion of this roadway. We are not going to score well, and Tom can attest to this, on just going in and reconstructing the road as is. They will be more apt to score us higher and give us more money on a roadway that's getting what we would consider a road diet or some reconfiguration of some kind.
And just so that people know, STBG funding comes through the Metropolitan Planning Organization. We have $12 million roughly a year that comes into our planning area, which includes this entire metro. And then there's a funding subcommittee that looks at the projects, scores the projects, and awards funding based on that. there's probably like, I don't know, $100 million worth of need and $12 million every year that gets allocated. So it's very competitive
Right.
funding to get that, and that typically will comprise, I don't know, up to what, 80% we can of the
Yeah,
project?
80%, we have to match 20.
We got to match 20, we can have up to 80% coming in from the federal government to the state, to our metropolitan planning organizations, which we are members of and sit on. And on the STBG funding subcommittee is our very own city manager, Tom Hatton.
So it's not, thank you for clarifying that.
Yep.
Because I throw out a lot of acronyms and sometimes people don't understand or know what I'm talking about. So thank you for stopping me there.
Yep.
There is another grant that's out there right now that the MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization, is helping us get work on, and it's called a RAISE grant. And that is a minimum of $5 million award, very, very competitive. But we're going to see what we can do to get our hat in the ring on that one, to get funding available or funding from that. And a 4 to 3 lane conversion would do a lot in getting that. Eric has told me that if we don't do that, that there's no business even putting in an application for that one, because it just there'll be too many other competitors out there that are doing things, to do road diets and slow traffic down and traffic calming and that sort of thing. So, center two-way left turn lanes, we got them all over our city. They're all over the metro, and they're safe. People call them a suicide lane. That's not the case. They're a two-way left turn lane. There's some things I'll go into later about those that are important, that cover some of the things that Councilman Trevilian was talking about in his letter. This 3-lane cross-section would minimize right-of-way along the entire stretch. We would take right-of-way, we would purchase right-of-way from a small number of properties adjacent to the turn lanes that we have to put in at 19th and 22nd. We've gone through and we've minimized that before we even started the workshops, and we've gone and minimized it even more. So we're working as hard as we can to minimize these things, and I'll kind of go through some of that of what we're doing to minimize. Will 3 lanes work from an analysis standpoint and a capacity standpoint? We're 100% confident that it'll work. We've modeled it. We've got a lot of experience on staff. Between Eric and Jim, traffic engineering experience, we're upwards of 60 years of experience with just those two. So we're very confident in the modeling that we've done and that it'll work. We can't do a do-nothing option. We have to replace Ashworth Road. I think that's something that is pretty evident. We've also heard folks ask about doing a pilot project. We could do a pilot project. The idea of doing a pilot project would be to let it sit for several years and analyze the crashes and how it works and so on and so forth. And in that time, 19th to 22nd is going to deteriorate to the point that we're going to have to spend potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars, up to $1 million, to re-overlay that so we can buy ourselves more time. Because the last time we did that overlay, which wasn't very long ago, that base was not good. And that is why we're in kind of an urgent situation to get something figured out for this section, because it looks great today, but it won't take long. A few more winters like we've been having, these cold temperatures, and then freeze and thaw and freeze and thaw. It's not great for that subgrade. So
How much did that overlay cost us?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I don't know. Yeah, it's in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah, and
When we're doing overlays, I mean, the age of the road, when it was initially laid to like the last overlay we do, we're talking, this is decades.
oh yes,
Decades.
absolutely.
We're talking
yeah.
50 years.
Right. We like to get 30 to 40 plus years out of our concrete pavements.
Right.
And then we try to do anywhere from 12 to 8 years on our overlays, depending on conditions and
Yeah.
the conditions of the pavement beneath and that sort of thing.
And that's after doing concrete patches.
Oh, yeah, that 30 or 40 years includes crack sealing, concrete patching, and a lot of other work as well. Okay, I'm going to try to get, I'm going to skip over a few of these. Our design standards are developed and modified over time based on research. Ultimately, it's up to our engineering judgment and to provide that, what we think is the best solution to you, which we are going to show you now. At the last workshop, there were several alternatives that were brought up by constituents, your constituents of different ideas that they had of what we could do between 19th and 22nd. We've looked at those and we were going to present them here right now. What I do want to do though is show you the first one, which is the recommended alternative. And I'll go back to it because we're going to have to switch between slides and show you the differences between the two. This, again, I'm not going to go through the reasons why we're choosing this option. There's 10 of them listed on the screen there. But this is the best option overall from a city standpoint. Is it the best option for the people that are getting right-of-way purchase from them? Probably not. That's the facts. But for the greater good of the city, this is the best option for the city. And I'm telling you that as a professional and you know, giving you that advice at this point in time. So this was one of them that was brought up. How can we just do 3 lanes in there because this the way the two-way left turn lane is in there, we can shift and adjust lanes and just keep it 3 lanes all the way through. Well, what you see here, and I don't know, does my mouse show up on your screens? Yes. So what happens is this through lane, as you're coming across, has to get shifted to the center lane, and then you have to shift across a full lane. You have to shift it across the intersection of 22nd and in the other direction, the intersection of 19th Street. That is absolutely horrible engineering design, and we cannot do that. It will cause crashes. It would be horrific if we designed it this way and built it this way.
And it has to shift like that because you don't have enough right of way.
Well, this was a alternative that was brought up,
Right.
that we sketched out and shifted traffic within those 3 lanes. It moved cars around.
Based on lane widths, certain lane widths being wider and narrower at different
It's
times.
essentially, this is like 11 to 12 foot lane widths, but it's shifting cars through. I mean, you can't just drive straight through if you want to go from 19th to 22nd.
Okay.
You'd have to shift twice, and one of them would be in an intersection, and you don't want shifting in an intersection.
Okay.
Because you're basically, as you're driving through the intersection, you're going to be head on with the left turner, and then you're going to have to turn 11 or 12 feet to get out of the way of that car to continue on. It's not, driver expectation is not that. So I'm trying to remember what the difference between this option and the next option is. So
Two-way left, one doesn't.
okay. So this, and Eric, maybe, this alternative is four lanes between 19th and 22nd, 3 lanes on, coming into it from both directions. But again, here, you have to shift traffic. You can't, like if you're going westbound, you have to shift over a lane to continue on through this intersection. And that, again, that defeats driver expectation. Another thing is we would have to paint these lines on the pavement against what the pavement joint lines are. And the de facto lanes are, when you can't see pavement markings, are the concrete joint lines. So this again is not, it's an option, but it's not a great option. And this one is basically just carrying a 4-lane section through, painting out certain areas. But again, you've got to shift you've got to shift traffic through. If you do anything from a 3 to a 4 to a 3, through this intersection, you're going to have to shift traffic. So a person driving through these 3 blocks is going to have to move over to make that work, no matter how you cut it. Now, that doesn't happen when you do 4-lane across the entire, if you do 4-lane from 1st to 50th. So then you don't have that lane shifting. But what this does is it doesn't eliminate the crashes, the 40 to 50% crashes that we were talking about earlier with rear end crashes and left turn crashes. So that safety aspect of the change does not exist. And this is a lot more expensive because there's more concrete in the ground. Another thing that we're going to be talking about at length, I'm sure, at some point is lane widths and why we choose the lane widths we do. In new areas of town, we use 12-foot lane widths wherever we can. And that's the preferred lane width by our design standards that we use, the statewide urban design standards, widely used across the state. We are, in this case, because of the constricted right-of-way, we are willing to decrease those lane widths to 11 feet. If you do that in this cross-section, you will end up having to buy right-of-way from every property owner from 1st to 50th, and it'll look a lot like it does here in that, like these, I'm colorblind, so I think it's blue or purple. You'll have to do that along the entire stretch of the road. Now, can we eke in a little bit here and eke in a little bit there? You bet. But ultimately, if you want to fit this road into that cross section, into that right of way, you're going to have really narrow parking, which is the area between your back of curb and your sidewalk, which is where all of the utilities lie, which I've got a list of the literally dozens of utilities that are in here that we would have to try to fit into that small, narrow parking, which isn't going to be physically possible. Unless you want to stack them 15 feet in the ground all the way up, and that is not a good design. That is not a good way to go. And if anything were to happen to any one of those, you'd be tearing out the ones above them to get to the ones below them. Okay. So ultimately, we are recommending this solution. It meets current design standards and improves safety. It's a strong candidate for grants, accommodates trucks and buses, and minimizes right-of-way needs along the entire stretch of the road.
And not to be Captain Obvious, but can you state what this is? Three lane?
Sure.
12 feet, 11 feet? What?
Yep. So what we've come up with is a cross-section that has three lanes. There is an 11-foot lane, a 12-foot center turn lane, and another 11-foot lane. But then you have to add on a curb offset on each side, which is 1 foot, because people don't drive right up against the curb, so that is a requirement. And then there's a half a foot of curb. So essentially, what we're looking at is from the back of curb to it's 12 and a half, 12 and a half. So it's essentially the exact same cross section that we have today. So with the exception of the turn lanes at 22nd and 19th. Now, there is one thing that we noticed today in some of the discussions we had is when we add these turn lanes in this location and this location, it essentially makes this lane right here and this lane here a through lane, which could be reduced. You can get rid of that curb offset so you can save a foot on each side. So in those areas of the turn lane, which we didn't have originally in our design, we saved a foot right there. So I think we said that we were going to have to purchase 12 feet of right-of-way. We're actually at 11 feet in those areas. So that's something that we found today, and we're able to minimize the right-of-way even more. Are there any questions?
Brian, why do we need a right turn lane from 19th through 23rd, but we don't need a right-hand turn lane on the other sections?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the traffic, 19th and 22nd are basically the same road going to the interchange on 235. So when somebody is coming north from EP True, they're going to take 19th Street because there is no throughway to get to 22nd, and they're going to go down Ashworth. They're going to turn left, and they're going to turn right and go up, and vice versa for the other direction. So the traffic volumes in this little stretch from 22nd to 19th are much, much higher than they are in the other areas. The other areas have a low enough volume now and in the future to handle, to have a 3-lane cross-section handle it. In this particular area, Eric did modeling on that without those turn lanes. It was gridlock. And so we looked at adding turn lanes. We looked at the length of the turn lanes and honed that in and put it as short as we could possibly go and get the traffic to move through. And this is the ultimate, this is what we came up with.
I guess the format that I would prefer that we go through, and if you guys disagree with me, please tell me, but we've heard Brian's presentation. I could open it up to questions of Brian now from the council, or we could wait and let the homeowners present and then save the council questions to the end, kind of like what we do for a public hearing where we close the public hearing. What would you prefer?
That sounds good, since Brian went first and
Okay.
shared his thoughts.
All
We
right,
can
so
talk
let's
about
save your
public.
question for Brian. We'll come back to that. Okay, anybody from the public that would like to speak, why don't you come up to the podium, give us your name and address for the record. Come up, come.
I want to see.
Okay,
So you just, so it's
Okay.
12 feet in the middle, 11, half a foot, and then the right turn lane is how wide? And then the or the parking is how far from
can we blow that?
I've
Can we
got
blow that
a
up?
cross-section that I can bring up.
the
Yeah, it's small, I apologize. All right. I believe this is it not, Nate?
That's the one at 22nd, yes. The one at 19th is the same, just on the other side.
Here it is, right here. This is what we're proposing.
Can you make that even bigger, Brian? Can you blow that up a little bit
Sure.
more? or-
Yeah.
How many lanes?
Is there a full screen on this or something? I don't know. I'm not
Or
a,
is it just zoom
Plus
in?
the
Hit-
sign up above in the middle where it says
Yeah.
43.7.
oh, yeah.
If you close the right.
Let's go 32.
Oh, yeah, close this thing, yep, got it.
So this is essentially three 12-foot lanes with an 11-foot right-hand turn lane
Could have been fun.
in between 19th and 23rd, and 9.5 foot.
11-inch lanes.
11 foot.
Well, 11 foot,
That's what I mean.
not counting the curb and
Okay,
the gutter.
I see.
It's essentially,
Right, this is just where the turn lanes are located. This is basically I think this is really the crux of the situation of the areas where right-of-way acquisition is happening. And those are those areas in purple that were on the PowerPoint slide.
but we're at a 4-foot sidewalk,
Correct,
9.5-foot parking.
correct.
We're at 11-foot right-hand turn lane. Parking's a rural term for in between the curb and the gutter.
Call it the grassy knoll.
I don't know.
And it's in between the curb and the sidewalk.
Or, I mean, curb and the gutter, no, curb and the sidewalk. So we have 11-foot right turn lanes, right? We've got 12-foot center lane,
Yep.
then 11-foot other direction, and again, 11-foot right-hand turn lane.
Right. And these are all the minimum allowable in SUDAS. And we don't typically do this, but in this situation, in the context of the situation, we believe that this is the best solution to minimize right-of-way and to make it a safe roadway for this area.
And who is SUDAS for people that don't know?
Yep, SUDAS, statewide urban design standards and specifications. It's a statewide, there's multiple jurisdictions that work together on it. We meet frequently to go over changes and updates in the standards and specifications and.
But they're the
determining-
standards that all cities follow.
Most cities in
Most
Iowa
cities
follow,
follow, not
yes.
all.
I can't say all, because
Okay.
technically
You don't
we don't follow them for our subdivisions, we follow them for CIP projects. But our standard specifications and design standards are very similar.
Okay. All right. Anybody from the public that would like to speak on this? Jump right up. I'm going to ask one thing of the public. Come on up, keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Get it all out, so we're not having people come up and speak 2 and 3 and 4 times. So get it all out, 5 minutes or less, please.
I'm Dell Christensen, 932 32nd Street, right on the corner of 32nd and Ashworth. And if these, Ashworth, it becomes a 3-lane road with a center lane for passing, what is going to be the traffic backup behind? There's 147 driveways along there. For the trash man going down the street, you can't pass them in that turn lane. So all that rush hour traffic in the morning especially will be lined up behind that trash man. Now, the way we have it now with the 4 lanes, they're narrow lanes, but they can still get past. And another thing, I don't understand why, when they are designing these streets, that they use only at the max of 25 radius on the corners. Trucks and stuff, the trash people, the city buses and stuff, it's pretty difficult for them to make a right-hand turn with that small of a radius. And simple things like this that I think could help the traffic. And I can't see where a 3-lane road is ever going to help anything. That most of the accidents are on intersections, not in the lanes. We've lived there on 32nd and Ashworth. I think it's probably around a little over 30 years, and there's never been an accident out on Ashworth anywhere near us. There's been on Vine and Ashworth, the intersection, it's not uncommon. It's just, I don't see where the 3-lane street is going to improve anything. It's going to be more problems. Another thing is, when you have an emergency vehicle coming down the street, you need to stop. Where's that emergency vehicle going to go? Is he going to be in the turn lane and you got somebody making a turn in the turn lane? You got an accident waiting to happen. I am totally against a 3-lane street. And EP True has a lot less traffic than Ashworth. And Ashworth, with the growth out in the western area, is only going to increase traffic. So, thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm writing down some of the questions you've come up with, and I'm writing down the questions that you've come up with, and I'm going to ask, at the very end of this, we're going to have, public is going to speak, and we're going to close the public hearing essentially, and we're going to ask, the council's going to ask questions at that time of Brian and staff, and if they have questions for the public, they'll ask those questions as well. Come on up.
Hi, my name's Alicia Trogdon, and my husband Brian and I and our family live at Ashworth and 21st Street. So we are actually going to be where the turning lane is going to be put in. I'm not sure, on his slide he did show our house. It is going to be quite a bit of yard that they are taking. That is actually the only usable part of our yard that we have, that I have like all my daycare stuff at. So that is actually very disheartening for us to see that that yard is going to be taken. However, that being said, I am always open for upgrades that need to be done. I understand Ashworth is very narrow. I travel that road to 50th, and I travel it down to the 16th to take another daycare kid to the Catholic school. So I'm traveling that road multiple times a day. I do know that it is very narrow. I drive an SUV. It is narrow. I agree that something needs to happen. The turning lane, how it's proposed, I'm not seeing that it would alleviate any of the congestion that's right there. The turning lane does not seem to be long enough. It's a busy road, right? Like you said, it's the one road from east to west through Des Moines, and I don't know that the turning lane is going to help that situation. As far as accidents that we see, because we see quite a few accidents at our intersection right there, is people trying to cut through 21st, right, to get either from Ashworth, and they cut through down to 21st, and then we curve around and we hit 22nd Street to go up to the interstate. So we have people constantly coming through this way, and we have people constantly coming through this way. How is a left turn going to work out of there? Are we going to be able to make a left turn with a turn lane and then a solid or straight shot lane and then another turn lane and then another straight shot lane? A lot of times what I see is people coming up 21st, and here's Ashworth, 2 lanes. This lane stops, right? They're being nice. They're going to let this person turn. This lane doesn't stop, and these people go, and then this lane hits them. That's a lot of what I see on our accidents, and we have quite a few of those accidents there.
So you're saying, how are people going to turn left off of 21st
Right.
onto Ashworth?
Right.
21st on, okay.
And again,
What's happening right now is, you're saying it's not ideal what's happening right now in 21st Street, because people they have that blind spot thing that they're talking
yes,
about.
but again, that's not necessarily the road problem. That's driver's problem, right? Because your first driver in this lane is stopping, and then these people are going out. This lane, the second lane, is not stopping. They're
Right.
just going straight. So I don't know that a road change, lane change, turn lane is going to alleviate that problem when it's kind of a driver issue, not paying attention. So I'm not against updating our roads. I don't think that turn lane is going to change anything. And like Councilman Trevigliano said, like, once you take that land from us, like, that's a huge part of our land. It's gonna put 12 feet, 15 feet from our house.
10, 15 feet from the side of my house.
So I'm losing all my usable yard. I'm gonna have to, obviously sit down with the city and ask you guys, hey, how are you gonna compensate me to make the rest of my yard usable? And having a road that close to my house is like not ideal, right?
What was
with
your
kids
address
and-
again?
1021st Street. So right on the corner of 21st and Ashworth, where the turn lane's going in. And you guys are welcome to come by anytime you want to. We can measure it out, and I can show you how close it's going to be to our home. And once, Alicia. And once that land's taken, like, if it doesn't work, how do I get that back? Right, if it doesn't work. So while I agree with road updates, I just don't think that's gonna work very well.
Okay, thank you, Alicia. Okay, next speaker.
My name's Ross Peeler, and I'm representing 409 Ashworth Road. I have
two real simple questions. I just want to clarify, the whole stretch will be 3-lane per your suggestion, short of 19th to 22nd. I would like to hear, I'd be curious, your thoughts on Councilman Trevillion's questions when he said, you know, whether it be the buses, trucks, things such as that. So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you so much. Next.
My name is Eric Bush. I live at 3901 Ashworth Road. It's corner of 39th on the north side, across from Valley High School. We've lived there a year and a half. Every accident near us is turning. It's all at the intersection. I'm not sure about, you know, the stats that show the side swipes. I suspect those are mirrors. Those aren't terrifically dangerous accident. Is somebody's losing a mirror and that's counted as an accident? I don't know. There's so many Amazon and FedEx going down that road, and now with 4 lanes, you just easily slide over into the middle and you're off. And those people do not pull into driveways because they do not want to back out. The stat that said EP True Parkway is slower than Ashworth is clearly said by somebody who's never driven those 2 roads. There's no way. And there is a big difference on how many driveways there are on Ashworth Road versus how many there are or are not on EP True Parkway in that same stretch. The other thing I saw was a listing of accidents and serious accidents. I think everything is relative. From my understanding, it's what, 12,000 cars a day on Ashworth? Is that a correct number? 12,000 cars a day?
It varies from section to section, anywhere from 8,000 to 16,000.
All right. The average between those is 12. 12,000 cars a day, 365 days a year, and that's a 6-year number. That wasn't over 1 year, that was a 6-year number of like 14 accidents. There's over 26 million cars driving, and you've got 14 accidents. So my question is, how acceptable is that compared to other metros? I suspect that's a tiny number, and there's no reason to spend 50. Last question. We're doing this so fast because there's grant money available. What I hear is there's $100 million requests, $100 million request for that grant money and 12 million available, or 6 million available? 12 million available. So on average, I'm guessing we'd get a 1/12 of that number. You're looking at $700,000. There's another $5 million grant that's possible if you do the 3-way and you have 12-foot lanes. What is the overall cost that we're talking? We're talking about 50+ million. And you're looking at doing these special things on behalf of 5.7 million. And you know, government contracts, that 57 million is going to balloon to at least 75 or 80 by the time you're done. The $5.7 million in grant you get will be totally wasted by the contractors messing up. Don't believe me that they've messed up? You didn't live on Ashworth when they resurfaced that road. Right? How many intersections did they have to come back and redo things? Every single intersection. I would love to see the stats of whoever that contractor was that put in that road, hey, you're going to be no access to Ashworth on this stretch for 2 days because we're putting in new, and they just kept having to redo and redo, mostly at intersections, over and over. How much was that overrun? What percentage was that overrun? I think you can safely assume that whatever your bid, the overrun's going to be that much. 20%, 30%, we're talking $50 million. 20% overrun is $10 million. You have to resurface the road, make it 4 lanes like it is now. I suspect that those accident numbers are tiny. I suspect they're tiny when you consider other 100,000+ metro areas. So there's a lot of stuff that was just said, oh, here are all these accidents. They're all because of turn lanes. And if you go to 3 lanes, I am telling you, they speed up. Especially at my intersection, what do you got? For 9 months of the year, you have inexperienced drivers that are frustrated because somebody was slow. Somebody's traveling 30 miles an hour on a 35. Anybody here get frustrated at that? You're going to have frustrated drivers. They're going to get in that left turn lane. It's yellow. I'm yanking it across, and that's where it's trying to get through that intersection. I live right there. It's already fast. It's going to get faster with 3 lanes because people are going to be flying to try to get through that light. It's the wrong thing to do, and the money that you're going to spend to do this way outweighs any sort of benefit, and you have to be good stewards of the tax money of us West Des Moines citizens. You have to resurface it at some point, I understand that. Resurface it, make it 4 lanes, and I don't care, drop it to 30 miles, and I think a lot of us that live on Ashworth would love to see it 30 miles an hour, okay? Drop it to 25, I mean, we don't want that to be a major artery. Minor artery is more than enough. $57 million, come on, it's 75 or 80. Am I right? Do you believe that?
No, I'm not sure that you are. I mean, and I'm
Go
not sure
find
where
for
you're.
us,
I'm
there's
not-
my question, go find for me that last resurfacing, all it was, blacktop. How much did they go over after you incorporate all of the extra work that they had to do to fix what they didn't get right the first time? What was the bid? What was the final dollar amount? As a citizen knowing these government, I just about guarantee it's 20% over, if not more. Maybe it's double, I don't know. But that was an easy project. It's just resurfacing, right? They didn't move curbs. Does anybody know? City manager?
No,
What was
but
the cost of the?
If you could wrap it up, you've been going for a little bit longer than 5 minutes. I'd appreciate it.
I would like to know all of those answers. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
My name's John Osborne. I live at 2201 Ashworth. With the discussion as mainly focused on Ashworth, I'm just as concerned about the southbound 22nd Street where it intersects Ashworth, since that's the corner I live on. So I'd like to know how much of my property is going to be taken not only from the Ashworth side, but with adding a right turn lane on southbound 22nd. Plus, does that proposal also involve moving the traffic signal and the control box that are already on my property? So I'm getting kind of a double whammy. I've got stakes still in my yard from the original proposal, and I'm not sure how much taking out the multiple use trail will add back. Because now you're still talking increasing the Ashworth and the 22nd side. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Eric, I apologize wherever you are. I wasn't trying to be rude to you, just trying to give other time for other people to make comments. And there's a lot of people here who'd like to speak, and you'd gone on for quite a while. So we've got everything written down, and we're going to get some answers to your questions. So,
Shane McClinton, 1910 Ashworth Road. I've tried to submit my thoughts to you all ahead of time, so we could all kind of be thoughtful about this. I do appreciate a lot of the conversations I've had with engineering, and I know that a lot of work has gone into this, a lot of thought has gone into this, and I would like to think that I've prompted some further consideration of the evidence as well. And as an evidence-based decision maker, I appreciate that, and I think that can help us to make the best decision there. A lot of what's been presented tonight, I'd love to be as confident as Brian is, 100% confident. He said everything is overwhelmingly clear. I've looked at the literature, and again, I've looked at it from as critical of an eye as I can, and there's a lot of assumptions within this project that I feel like we're still being egregious with how much we're doing, especially in the current option here, really hasn't changed very much. Let me just read a couple things. We talked about SUDIS and the guidelines there, and that's why we're going to 11 and we're trying to go to 12 feet, of which perhaps there's some room for improvement there that we could reduce what we're taking even with the current plan, or if we decide to go with 4 lanes all the way through or in certain sections. But these are assumptions that continue to ask for more from homeowners than what I think is necessary. So are we putting a plan out there that is nice in a retrofit situation? This would be entirely different if we're building this in a cornfield. This is a retrofit situation with existing homes, existing properties, and existing travel patterns as well. So SUDIS, recently I learned, and thanks to our engineers here, considered changing our plans. Instead of having 12-foot be preferred and 11-foot be acceptable, because of the evidence that's out there, it's been proposed that they change it to 11 and 10. So 11 would be preferred, 10 would be the acceptable range. They chose not to do that to allow the designers to have flexibility. Not because the science says it's safer, not because the science says it improves flow, to allow flexibility. And they go on to say that they feel like if they reduce that, then in new construction, they would underbuild the lanes based on those guidelines. So again, I think in support, we look to the evidence. What is nice, okay? And what can we do and still maintain safety? I want this road to be safe. I live on it. I want everyone on the road to be safe as well. But from the science that I've read and that I've tried to reveal to you all, we can be working all the way down to closer to 10 in certain places and 11. And in the studies that have been done, they measure it from the curb. They don't say they need an extra offset. They don't need to take more and grab more land. They say if it's 11 feet on the outer lane and that's safe, it's 11 feet from the face of the curb to the next lane. And the inner lanes can be narrower. Okay, even the two-way turn lane. The studies have shown that that can still be narrower. It doesn't have to be 12 feet. It can still be narrower as an inner lane. So I think there's still some things that we can do to accommodate. And I'm not strictly opposed to the 3-lane. I would hope that it would work. But Councilman Trevilian laid out a lot of the concerns that I have. I'm not 100% certain. It was partly, I agree. I don't know if that came from me or someone else, but I do think it would be smart to maybe look at a subsection of this road because, again, if you look at the evidence of 4 to 3 lanes, it does show some safety improvements. But they're not roads like Ashworth Road. And when you look down and drill down to those roads in Des Moines, it's not as convincing. So I still think there's a lot there that we don't know. I would love if he has a crystal ball and can say it is 100% guaranteed. But experts have been wrong before. I can give you hundreds of examples of experts. We have experts working for us. I do not discount that. But I'm just saying to stand here and say it's 100% guaranteed, overwhelmingly confident, I think is a little bit much. And if we could study a section, for example, studying and converting 8th to 19th or 1st to 19th, doing that first, maybe it's a year, whatever we need to get enough statistics to say, you know what, this really does work. We didn't run into any of the problems, and hey, we reduced we improved safety. Then, as a homeowner, I'd be more comfortable saying, okay, you can take some land, but I still feel like even with the plan, we don't need that much. It's not necessary. So I would ask you to please only take what's necessary in this retrofit situation without trying to make it be flexible, okay, based on standards that were based more for new construction. I'm going to just end with one more thing. I've sent this, I think, to you all, but I'm going to just give you words of another engineer. Okay, so hear it from him. So the assumption that higher volume streets needing wider lane widths are not aligned with basic science. These are traffic engineering beliefs, not scientific evidence. In fact, I read more than 3,000 research papers and articles. I could not trace any evidence to justify this assumption. Okay? There have been 3 articles presented, of which I presented. No other evidence has been presented that trumps that we could use narrower lanes than what's currently proposed and save the homeowners some land. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, next speaker.
Good evening.
Go ahead.
My name is Jose Viteri. I'm at 3115 Ashworth. Last time we were here for the workshop on the bike path, we said, I heard something that was said somewhere along the lines of, we don't have to know all the solutions or have all the design completed to approve this plan. And so given the concerns the residents have brought up during these workshops, including those brought up today by Councilman Trevelyan, it appears to me that we are trying to apply the same philosophy to this portion of the plan. We may not have all the answers for your concerns, but let's approve this plan anyway. And that philosophy concerns me. Thank you.
Okay, next speaker.
Hi, Greg Ferris, 2000 Ashworth Road. I live kind of right in the main part of this. Since we have the engineer here, I wanted to ask this one question that it's not really clear to me. Since we're putting a right turn lane at 2 intersections, 19th and 22nd, there's not a left turn at either of those intersections. What are we going to do with the extra lane? Is it going to be blocked off? Is there going to be a curb there? That wasn't really clear on the specs. I'd like to see exactly what's going to do that, because they're taking a lot of right away from some homeowners here, and there's not a through street. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Anybody else?
Jennifer Igo. I live at 601 Ashworth Road. I had a few deliveries over the past month from FedEx, Amazon, UPS, etc. So I did a little research of my own, asking those delivery drivers who do park on Ashworth and walk up my driveway, where would you park if it was a turning lane, 2 lanes and a turning lane to deliver my packages? And they said the turning lane. So are they going to walk across traffic? Is that okay for us? Do they get a ticket? I don't know, but I'm just telling you the little research that I did over the last month of this delivery drivers. The turning lane. The middle turning lane, yeah. Instead of blocking the traffic, they could allow traffic to go, they'd park in the turning lane.
Wow.
Just a comment that I think that is also
Yeah. Wow, that's
dangerous.
Yeah, that's crazy. But, okay.
Park car there, and that's
Thank-
supporting 3 lanes.
Okay, thanks, Jennifer, appreciate it. Okay, anybody else? Okay, Melissa.
One teeny tiny thing. Melissa Walker-Gobin, 704 Ashworth Road. The median that's proposed for 23rd, that little section right there, what's going to happen? How are we going to access that road, whether it be emergency vehicles or just people wanting to turn left right there if you're headed west on Ashworth Road? It looks like that's still part of the plan, and does that whole neighborhood know that they won't have access to turn down that road except coming from the west?
So Melissa, tell me, how are we going to access what?
Well, I don't know if you can put that picture back up, but it looks like there's a median right there. Did that get removed, or is it still there?
People go to Fair Meadows?
Yeah, if you're trying to
Okay.
turn left on Ashworth, heading west. It looks like that median is still there. Yeah, we're turning south. It looks like that median's still there. So how do people turn to
Okay.
get there?
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else? No? All right, all right. Okay, anybody else want to address the council? Anybody that has not spoken? Okay, MJ, come on up.
MJ Hoag, 413 Second Street. I actually just want to reiterate what he said about restriping like 1st through 8th, 8th through 19th first. And you don't necessarily do that to figure out whether 3 lanes is going to work. You know 3 lanes is going to work because Brian and Eric are good at their jobs. But you do that to get resident buy-in. And the other thing I want to point out is that, Brian, last time you presented this, it was 12 feet including the gutter. This is still 12 feet including the gutter, so you haven't actually narrowed the lanes at all. Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you, MJ. Anybody else?
My name is Michael McClinton. I also live at 1910 Ashworth Road. I just want some clarification, especially when I am looking at those of us that live live off of Ashworth even, and you're turning left. Probably one of my biggest concerns is turning left across a 3-lane, potentially 3-lane plus the turning lane for some of us that are impacted with that. And how we do so safely. So we're talking about safety. So safety of drivers, but you also have to consider it as a residential area. So how do we safely enter Ashworth across 3 lanes of traffic, 1 being continuous, 1 in a turn lane? We've heard turn into that middle turn lane. Well, if you think about it, where we turn, if we would turn left, they're also turning left off of 20th Street. During a busy time of the day, 7 to 9 o'clock in the morning. I have a child who goes to the high school every day. I will have one soon going there as well, so I will have 2. That is a huge concern to me, that they will get hit every time they attempt to get out and go to school. Those coming off 20th, I mean, we've heard the term suicide lane. That is what I think about is, we turn left out of our driveway, someone turns left out of 20th into that lane to either 1, sit there and try to merge into the single lanes, because during heavy traffic times, that's not going to be all that feasible. So you sit in that lane, you're not going to get any momentum to actually try to merge in. So traffic is going to have to stop to hopefully let us in. So that is one of the concerns that I have. Probably the biggest concerns with the 3-lane. That I would like some additional information on, and if there is any way to make that safer for all of us, not just us on the stretch of 19th to 23rd, but it would impact everybody, because you do not have cross intersections in many places on Ashworth. You have a lot of alternating ways to get onto Ashworth, and that left turn lane, or left turn to get on, is going to be treacherous. Another thing, and I know a couple of people have mentioned the backup. Right now with 4 lanes, so if you are going westbound through the 19th Street, you have 2 lanes. You may have those stopped who want to turn left onto 19th, and the rest are going through. For us, speaking where we're at, or anybody close to that intersection, we have that 2nd lane to get into, that interior lane, because most people will continue in that far lane. So moving to a 3-lane, we no longer have that capability of doing that. So just some things to think about from a residential safety standpoint of all of us that do live on Ashworth Road. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anybody else who has not gotten a chance to speak that would like to address the council? Okay, going once. I want everybody to have a chance to speak. Going twice. Okay. Brian, if you want to come up and begin addressing some of these, and I am going to help you.
Okay.
So,
1 second here.
yep,
I got multiple things
and
written
we
down
can
in
have
different places.
Eric and anybody else chime in as well. So first, let's just start with this. Ross wanted to know what your thoughts were on Councilman Trevillion's letter regarding buses and trucks and whatnot.
Yep, I got to pull that up. Okay. The buses and trucks, I can address that. Essentially, if there's vehicles stopped in the through lane, whether it's a garbage truck, mailman, delivery truck, you can legally pass them in the two-way left turn lane. It is a legal maneuver.
Can we put that intersection up 19th to 21st? I feel like it'd help us if we could see it.
Sure thing. I'll try to zoom in on it as much as I can here. Let's see, it must be down here. There, I think that's as close as I can get without starting to lose stuff. Of if a truck were to stop there? Yeah, so truck stops here. You can enter this lane and go around them and continue on. Is that the question?
I thought I had heard that the vehicle would park in the turning lane.
That is what she is saying that some people would do. I would not recommend that.
Well, I get that. Yeah, I know.
I mean, that's their prerogative. If they
I know.
choose to do that is illegal.
People do a lot of stupid things.
Yeah, that is not permissible.
I hear you, but I'm just saying, okay, so the scenario that was presented is somebody parks there. What did you say?
If somebody parks in the travel lane.
In the turn lane.
In the turn lane, you just drive by them.
I'm sorry, in the center.
Yeah, in the center, in the two-way left turn lane in the middle.
Okay.
And you're coming up on them.
Uh-huh.
You would just continue going straight. I don't know if I understand your question.
Okay.
Just don't hit the delivery person who's crossing in front of you, apparently.
Right, but honestly, that is not a good move for them.
I can't even imagine, I can't believe the person gave that answer, but.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that.
And then what were you addressing then, Brian? You were saying.
What I was saying is if you have a garbage truck that's picking up garbage, they will be doing it from the travel lane, not the turn lane. So if a garbage truck, mailman, delivery truck, whatever is stopped in that lane, you can go around them in the two-way left turn lane, and that is a legal maneuver.
I see what you're saying.
Okay. All right, let's move on to Eric's questions. Every accident is in the turning, people turning and at intersections.
Well, there was a question about using larger radii at the corner.
Okay, I got to find
And I
what it
can't
is.
remember who asked that question, but that is something that we will look at and
That
we
was
will do
Dell.
and make sure of. I agree, the current radii on those streets are too small. And to get trucks around them, we'll have to increase those radii. So, yes, I totally agree with you. Can't remember who said it.
Okay, that was Dell. Okay.
And then Eric had some questions about, I
Maybe
think,
not Dell. Yes, it was.
about, I don't know.
Well, let's go back to Dell. Let's stay on one person.
Okay,
So
go
you
ahead.
addressed the radii for Dell. That was
Yep.
number 2.
Yep.
He said backup, trash pickup was an issue. You've addressed that issue. But also, aren't the trash people going to come and pick up trash on this road much earlier?
Yeah,
Aren't we going to work with them?
And that's the thing is like school buses and garbage pickup and things like that. We can work with those folks to schedule things in such a way that it's not going to be either, like, the garbage trucks won't be, we can have them come earlier. We can
Okay.
have them come at a non-peak time.
Okay.
And we can work with waste or the waste collector to do that.
Okay.
Like the school buses, for example, if they stop, we can work with the schools to manipulate their routes so they're maybe not picking students up on Ashworth. There's enough side streets there that we can probably work with them and minimize the number of stops on Ashworth Road to pick up students.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Most accidents occurring in intersections. Eric, are you still here? Are you behind Brian? Do we have any data that shows where these accidents actually are occurring?
Yeah, can you go back?
Are they mainly in the intersections? Are they mainly with people turning?
These are where and I got to zoom out now, but these are where the reported accidents for the last 6 years have been located and taking out snow and ice, deer, alcohol, everything that's written up there. These are just your standard run-of-the-mill accidents in the last 6 years.
Okay, and it would make sense that a lot of them are probably at intersections. I mean, look at some of the
There's
most
more
major ones, there's a lot more.
accidents, but we pulled out a significant
Right.
number of them because of
Right.
those other things.
There's a bunch here that are not at intersections, but there's a large number that are.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, and then Dell doesn't want 3 lanes.
There was a question about emergency.
Where does
vehicles.
emergency vehicles go?
Right. So at the last workshop, we had a slide in there. I've talked to the EMS and fire chief. He far and away prefers a 3-lane cross-section because then people will just stop in that lane and then he's got that center left turn lane to go down the road and not be impeded. As it stands right now, with the 4 lanes, people just stop and then there's they panic and they don't know where to go and then they're weaving in and out and that's just not safe for them. So that is directly from our fire chief, EMS chief.
Okay, moving on to Alicia, taking only usable part of her yard. Doesn't see that the turning lane would alleviate congestion. The turning lanes are not long enough. But if you make them longer, then you're going to get into more people's property, aren't you? You guys
Yes.
came out with this as design, like you
Right.
always do, and made it as tight as you possibly could to get it off people's property from the first draft, right?
Correct.
And
Correct.
part of that was making these turn lanes as short as possible. So you could address Alicia's issue and make them longer. Now you're taking other people's properties as well.
Right.
Right.
I mean, we have applied future traffic to these traffic models. We've done traffic models all over. I mean, we have a model for the whole city that we use. And we've tested it against current traffic volumes and turn movements and things like that. And it's accurate plus or minus a pretty small percentage.
Okay.
So we're confident in these models and we believe that these turn lanes are the proper length. We wouldn't ever make them longer than they needed to be or shorter.
Okay, and taking only usable part of her yard. I'm assuming she's at 21st and Ashworth.
And this is something that Nate provided, Nate Wischive Hattery provided this morning. And I don't know if you can explain the existing condition. We're 41 feet to the closest home, and we would, with the 11-foot right-of-way acquisition, we would be 30 feet.
Yeah, this has an 11-foot purchase. It was more when we had the trail on the north, but without the trail, it's 11 feet as proposed. The closest house is 41 feet. I think that's actually the one right on the corner, northeast corner at 22nd and Ashworth.
Okay, so they're saying 10 to 15 feet from the side of their house. That's not accurate?
That is not accurate.
No.
You're adding an 11-foot lane, but then you have to put in this row acquisition, but then you have to put in this.
No,
All that's there today, the sidewalk will basically move back 11 feet. That's what we're talking about.
And you're saying that you're still, how many feet from my house?
It'd be 11 feet less than what's there today.
But how many feet are you saying that you are away from my house?
I measured it on my phone quick. I think it's 44 feet from your house to the sidewalk.
Would you like to come out tomorrow and we can?
Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to have these guys work with you guys individually to show you where this design would put you, okay? Okay, doesn't want to see turning lane. Okay, turning lane does not alleviate. You said the turning lane does alleviate. How is left turn going to work out 21st onto Ashworth?
24, oh yeah, so, let's see, I gotta get that picture up so I can see exactly what
And
they're
I guess
talking
my
about.
question is, doesn't the same issue exist today?
It does,
Okay, so this doesn't make it any worse, any better.
correct. That, that is true, but there isn't gonna be any more traffic on the road because we built this.
Brian, is the expectation for a resident who's turning at this exact spot, as you're kind of saying, is the expectation that they go into that center lane?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I mean, that's an option for them, but not necessarily.
Okay, trucking on right down through. Going back to Eric. Okay, every accident it's turning in intersections. We've seen that not every accident, but there are a large number of accidents certainly that meet that. Tons of Amazon, FedEx easily slide over with the 4-lane, but insinuating there's going to be issues with the 3-lane. We've had that discussion.
I think he also mentioned side swipe accidents and that they're just hitting mirrors and that, I mean, Eric did all the analysis of those and there's actual property damage to the vehicles. It's like, it's not just mirrors getting hit, and usually those are the ones that don't get reported. These are like property damage to the vehicles type of accidents. We wouldn't, you know, just a couple of mirrors hitting, we wouldn't even put on the list.
How many of them are due to a blowout on a tire?
We're not going to.
Something like that would have been left out.
We'll give you time, Eric, we'll give you time to come back up if you want to ask additional questions or make some statements. Says, claim that the EP True is slower than Ashworth, people haven't driven, and there's a lot more driveways.
I think what I said is that EP True has more traffic. It's not that it's faster.
Okay. Okay. Difference between accidents and serious accidents. Eric is saying that there are accidents here, but they're not serious ones.
Well, we had, I can't remember on the, which slide it was. 40% of the crashes resulted in injuries, with 3 crashes resulting in serious injuries. So there's injuries.
Okay.
3 crashes resulting in serious injuries over 6 years.
Okay.
Over 6 years, 26 million car trips.
Okay.
26 million car trips. Human beings driving.
Okay. And comment that we're doing this because of the grant money.
That's not why we're
Nothing compared to the
doing
total
it.
project itself.
The road's falling apart, and we have to replace it. And what are we going to replace it with? We can't keep doing asphalt overlays because you physically can't do them anymore.
Right, but I am interested in the grant money because that's going to defray the cost to the taxpayers
Right.
of this city. If we can get federal dollars, if we can get the RISE grant, whatever Eric talked about. But we're also, the other thing is, it's not going to pale in comparison to the total cost of the project because we can apply for funding and receive that funding over multiple years and have for many projects.
And that's what we would intend to do with the Surface Transportation Block Grant funding from the MPO is continual every year ask for that money. And we could get potentially, you know, if we're doing these things, we could potentially get $1.5 million a year and just keep putting it in the coffers to pay for this road. And then, you know, then we don't have to come up with the money to set a straight GO.
My impression is we're pretty good at applying for these, right? Like in the past 3 years, we've gotten 500, 700, 900, I don't know the numbers exactly.
About $1 million.
Between $1 million to $1.2 million,
Okay.
1.2.
So we are very good at applying for these and receiving
We
these,
are.
which means we know the business.
We are.
That's good, so.
And then there's other funds, TSIP funds, Eric, is that what they're called? Traffic Safety Improvement Program. That's potentially another $500,000, and they would salivate all over a 4 to 3 lane conversion.
But we're doing this because the road needs to be done. It's
Yeah,
deteriorating.
we're not doing
we
it
don't-
because there's grant money. We're like, hey, what road can we fix? That's
Okay.
not why we're doing it. We would never do that because that's a waste of not just city taxpayer dollars, but federal taxpayer dollars. There's no reason to do that.
Okay, cost overruns on construction projects, what have you typically seen as far as cost overruns on road construction?
On street projects, almost zero.
Yeah, I was going to say, street projects aren't that much.
No.
It's more of some of the building and
I mean, we could
things.
show you data from the last 10 years of how much we've gone over on street projects, and it's pretty rare. Jason's sitting back there, he's been our CIP engineer for years, and I mean, our cost overruns are usually on building projects. That's where where the massive ones come in. We don't have hardly any on street, bridge, road.
Or if there are change
sewer.
orders that we have to do that as we go into the project.
Usually change orders are, for the most part, they're a zero-sum game.
Okay.
Usually. And I mean, we'll have a little ones here and there, but not to the order of magnitude that he was describing.
Okay, made a comment, make 4 lanes, the accidents are nothing compared to other areas of the metro, not really a question. People are going to go faster because there are 3 lanes. Are people going to go faster because there are 3 lanes?
Studies show that your traffic's reduced, or speeds are reduced on 3-lane cross-section.
Okay, and then the last, the money spent is going to outweigh the benefits of doing the project.
Yeah, I don't know what to say other than I disagree.
All right.
Because we have to, like, Brian, from First to 50th Street, the underlying foundation of this road is desperately in need of attention.
It is.
Now, in some places, maybe more than other, but you're also saying from 19th to 22nd,
Right.
that's a really tough spot
There
right
may
now.
be sections of this road that we don't reconstruct for up to 20 years because we can do another asphalt overlay on it. So we wouldn't just reconstruct a road to reconstruct a road. We're not, and because you can overlay a road much cheaper than you can reconstruct one. But there comes to a certain point when the road is deteriorated to the point that you come to a point of diminishing returns on putting an asphalt overlay on.
And because 19 to 22nd is so busy, that's one where.
Yeah, I don't know the reason
If it's the
why.
most-
It
oh,
could be,
okay.
it could have been the construction, it could have been anything.
But it's in rough shape, that's
But
what
it
you're
is in
suggesting.
very rough shape. It doesn't appear that way today because we just overlaid it. But it'll manifest itself in a very short period of time.
Okay, John at 2201 Ashworth commented about southbound 22nd Street, where it intersects Ashworth. How much of the property will he lose between the 22nd Street, purchase the property, and Ashworth, since he's on the corner?
Help on this one. We're not putting in a southbound turn lane on 22nd.
We have a left and a right today.
So we have a left and a right today, so we're not going to do anything different.
The radius is different.
We're going,
Make sure trucks can get around the
right, we'll increase the radius as another resident had recommended. We're going to increase the radius so trucks can get around it better and they're not dragging their back wheels through sod.
Okay, and does it involve moving the traffic signal and control box?
It may.
new traffic.
New traffic signals, yeah, so.
Okay, so that may, how far is that going to get moved?
But those will all be in the future right-of-way, and I think they're in the current right-of-way today. They're not in his property per se, are they?
I'd have to look, but I think so. They
Yeah.
should be in right.
Okay, how much will adding back or getting rid of the trail add back for him?
Well, 10 feet.
Okay. Okay, Shane, evidence-based decision maker. Not confident as to what you were saying, Brian. Commented that the options haven't changed much, and SUDAS was, let's see, what does he say here? Asking for a menu of, for homeowners, this is a retrofit situation. SUDAS, because it's evidence looked at changing the standards from 11 to 10, but they gave flexibility instead. Didn't make those changes, but they.
Yep,
were looking at it.
so I sent this information to Shane because, full disclosure, these are the conversations we have as as an engineering group and engineers across the state. We sit down together in districts and discuss changes potentially to our design standards and specifications. This one was brought to us, and rather than basically tell us this has to be this way, give us the flexibility to be able to do 12, 11, 10, whatever. Because I as a city engineer, I could recommend 10-foot lanes on Ashworth Road. And there are applications, maybe even in West Des Moines, where 10-foot lanes are applicable. I just don't believe, and neither does my staff, who have 120 years combined experience in engineering, we don't believe that Ashworth is one of them. And it's that simple. We've reviewed all of the data, we reviewed all of the information, we appreciate getting that, because a lot of it's changed my view. I used to be a staunch 12-foot lane, you're not gonna change my mind, this is the way we're gonna go. But when you're going through and seeing how this is affecting right-of-way and people's, daily lives and their homes and their property, those are things that we believe we can concede on and still have a safe roadway.
Okay, smart to look at a subsection, he's not opposed to 3 lanes, smart to look at a subsection, essentially doing like a pilot project.
And I think I addressed that in my earlier discussion, that if we do a subset and we wait for results, how long do we wait for results before everybody's confident that it's going to work? And all the while, the roadway on 19th to 22nd is deteriorating to the point where we may have to put another overlay on it and waste taxpayer dollars to put another overlay on.
Okay, MJ talked about restriping. Don't do this to see if it's going to work. Talking against the pilot project. Lanes haven't been narrowed at all. Talking about being the same. And then I don't know if this was, I missed the first name. I think, was it Shane's spouse maybe that got up and spoke? Talked about turning left against 3 lanes plus the turning lane. How do we do that safely at 1920 Ashworth?
Yeah, the way, obviously, there's one more lane that you have to cross, but I mean, my answer isn't any different than
No
before.
more lanes. They'd have to cross 2 lanes today and 2 lanes in the future. And today,
But if they're in the right turn lane, they would have the right lane, the through lane, the two-way left turn
talking the
lane.
westbound into the property or the east?
I think they're talking about pulling out and, pulling out going westbound. Yeah, there's 3 lanes there versus 2 today. But what I would say to that is your current lane widths out there today are 9 feet. If you're comfortable when a car is, basically what you're saying is today you are comfortable with, if there is a car coming in the outside lane, you're comfortable with pulling into the inside lane at the lane widths that are out there today. Now that I don't believe. I do not believe that at all. I'm sorry it's not a safe maneuver.
Okay, where does she turn left, or others are also turning left, was another question. Those coming off of 20th, suicide lanes, traffic's going to have to stop to let her in. Can we make it safer? Same answer.
Right.
Okay.
There's a, maybe I'm jumping ahead. Somebody asked about the left turn lane. Am I jumping ahead? The left turn lanes and how, I can't remember who came up and asked that question, but it was about the left turn lanes and how they're at 22nd and 19th, you don't need a left turn lane going, at 19th, you don't need a turn lane going north. Why can't we get rid of that? That was addressed in this. If you got rid of it, you would have to shift the traffic from that center lane over across to the other lane. We would just paint it out, and you have to have lane continuity is essentially why we aren't doing it that way. So if you look at this, when you're going straight through, the lanes continue straight. If you look at any situation where you take that turn lane out, like this one, you're going to have to shift traffic back across an intersection. Do you see those red lines at the intersection? That's not a safe maneuver.
Okay, what about going back to Shane's comments about evidence-based? What evidence-based do engineers use? Is there some other evidence-based design standards or some kind of a scientific study that you guys do, or?
We follow the statewide urban design standards.
Okay.
And if there is any information that people want to propose to us, we'll look at it, and I have the ability to go less than that, but it's not advisable, because if something happens, if you go less than the minimum permissible or minimum allowable design standards, you potentially set yourself up for liability if there's an accident and you have a smart enough attorney. I think it's something Dick and I discussed earlier today, and he agrees with.
Okay, Jose talked about at 3115 Ashworth that we're having a conflicting comments here saying we don't have to have all the design completed to approve this plan, but then try to provide the same philosophy to the portion of the plan, and it concerns him.
Now, we have the design, the preliminary design essentially done for the stretch from First to 50th. I mean, are there things that we have to do, like tweaks we have to make? You bet. But for us to go in and design the entire road now, that would be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars of engineering time that wouldn't make any sense to do.
Okay, Greg at 2000 Ashworth Road said, since putting a right turn lane at 19th and 22nd, no left turn lane, what are you going to do with that?
Say that one again, I'm sorry.
Since we're putting a right turn lane at 19th and 22nd and no left turn lane,
Yeah,
what are we going to do?
I addressed that one already.
Okay. Jennifer talked about the delivery drivers, and they park in the center lane.
Right.
People are crazy. Apparently they do it. And then Melissa talked about median for 23rd and how we're going to access, or how people are going to go from Fair Meadows.
Yep, and I can talk about that. So that median is shown right now. That is something that if we wanted to remove that as part of this design, we would be okay with, and we would monitor the situation and see if we have issues with either crashes or backups or anything. Like people, what you run into is people that are trying to turn left to go northbound on 22nd. If somebody's coming down here and wants to go southbound.
Brian, we go to the other one. This is the option that doesn't work.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yep. So if somebody wants to go southbound and then come down through here, if this island was gone and there was a backup of cars, which we see in our modeling, this car would sit here and it would potentially back up cars this way and this way. So the idea is to eliminate the ability for folks to turn left into or out of that street to make this a safer area, essentially. What Eric and I have discussed is the potential of leaving the median out and building it to potentially put it in like a dowel-on median in the future. And that's something that we can do, and we can watch it and determine if that's something that we need to do based on crashes.
Anybody else from the audience want to make some quick comments, and then we're going to go to City Council, ask any questions of people, and then we're not going to be making any decisions tonight, but we're going to get some kind of consensus as to which direction the council wants to move. Anybody else from the audience want to come up and make some quick comments? Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, this will be quick. So just a couple points too, and I again appreciate the further insight as well. But the other thing that I guess has bothered me about this decision-making process too is he kind of talked about, again, I trust their experience, but when we look at an evidence hierarchy, experience is still at the bottom of the evidence pyramid. And if there is higher level evidence that exists, and again, I'm not a lawyer, but maybe you can comment, if there is higher level evidence that exists, it trumps an expert coming in with X number of years of experience. If there's evidence that has thousands of data points that says this lane width can work and we can reduce what we have even more and it still is safe. So we make this decision based on evidence that is above an expert opinion. Some of the other crash data evidence as well is still below the thousands of data points that come from these other studies. Okay, so again, that's the concern I have, is that we're basing decisions based on lower evidence, saying it trumps. That's like me saying my ace high beats 3 of a kind. We're saying this trumps higher level evidence. And to me, that should stand up in a court of law. In fact, that was one of my thoughts earlier, is if a homeowner said, you're taking too much land, can you justify that? Here's evidence that shows you don't need to take that much because this width is safe, and it's as safe as what you are taking or what you're using. Doesn't that make sense too? And I guess that's my concern too, is I appreciate If we don't have this evidence, then yes, we rely on the experts. Absolutely. But when it's there, we can't trump it.
All right.
Last point on that,
Go
though,
ahead.
too, the data, the crash data,
Okay.
comparing two roads is very dangerous from an inference standpoint. We would never do that in any study, compare one road to another. That's like saying, I'm going to look at your diet, and you weigh less, so guess what? You need to be on his diet. And the thousands of other people that are on diets that we might compare that might actually tell us what diet works, we're going to ignore that, but instead just look at you two and make that decision on two places. So comparing two roads like Ashworth near the high school, which there's some young drivers, I have one of them, they're not very good, so I understand they get in more accidents. There's a lot of spurious findings that can come from that I would question putting a lot of validity in support behind that.
Okay.
In contrast to other studies of higher evidence.
All right, appreciate it. Anybody else? Jennifer?
I just have a question about the intent with the 4-lane and the option for a 4-lane, continuing with 4 lanes. At the last meeting, were we not wanting to look and see can a 4-lane still work? Was that an option for us to see?
Brian, will you go back to that one?
Yeah.
really quick?
And
Sure.
if
That was
we
part
do
of
get a
this.
4-lane, is the option, or if we can look at a 4-lane, can there be an option to reduce speeds on Ashworth to circumvent the safety that we're pushing this project with? Can we reduce the speed 5 miles per hour?
I would tell you no, not unless it's warranted. And I can tell you that based on experience. When we did that on Grand Avenue, that was probably one of the dumbest things I've ever done
Reduce
as a council person.
Reduce
Yep,
speed?
Yep.
Reduce speed.
I got more comments that it feels like we're crawling, and there's no reason we're going this speed. I got more people that were upset with that. It made no sense. We didn't
How
do
wide
it.
is how wide is Grand?
It was after we widened it, but it didn't matter. It's based on warrants and people doing traffic studies to determine what the speed of that road should be and what the 85 percentile of speed is that people are going at that time. That's how they determine it. But for us to reduce it to some amount, it doesn't make any sense. We've done it before and we've learned from it. And we could certainly study it again and see what that 85 percentile is that people are going, and maybe we need to reduce the speed. Maybe we need to increase the speed. I mean, we could study it, but and without studying it and doing the warrants, just doing it willy-nilly like we did on Grand Avenue, it was a disaster. And we put it back. We had to put speed back.
And then the other question I have is, we continue to say that, it sounds to me, what I hear is that this section between 19th and 23rd is literally going to crumble tomorrow. What is the realistic time frame? How much time do we have? I hear that it's going to crumble tomorrow. That's what I hear from you. But realistically, what is it?
I'm guessing we've got 4 to 6 years, maybe.
And knowing that that's going to be the first section that we would do, that's the reason why we would do that first, because it's crumbling.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
And
So
then
you
the
wanna
question
address
about the 4-lane?
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, our number one recommendation is the 3-lane with the 2 turn lanes at 19th and 22nd. Our second option, or preference, I guess, would be 4 lanes across the entire project. But not at the lane widths that Councilman Trevilian is saying.
At what lane widths then?
We would be at, essentially, I'm going to leave the curb offsets off because I've been accused of not actually saying what I'm saying, but I was trying to explain lane widths, and
Sure.
I'm 12-foot outside lane, 11-foot, 11-foot, 12-foot.
12, 11, 11, 12.
And if we put that in a typical cross-section, I did the math earlier, now I can't remember it, but that leaves almost 0 parking, the grassed area between the sidewalk and the back of the curb for utilities, which is unacceptable. We have to have room for those.
What is, and the other thing that we're not talking about is snow removal. And not just snow removal, but when the plows are coming, all of us are annoyed when we snow blow our driveways and they come back and push the snow in front of it. What is, and I see Brett sitting back there, what is the minimum parking width area that we can do to make sure that we're not having the snow plows come through and brush all the snow for the entire length of the people's sidewalks?
So no offense to Brett, his guys do a great job, but I live on 50th Street and I've got 12 feet between my sidewalk and the back of curb, and I still get plow stuff on my sidewalk. So it's just the speed at which they do it, and they're doing their job.
Right.
And it's no fault of them or what they're doing. They have to get it done efficiently. So the minimum, I don't know that we really have a minimum. The more you have, the better. But
How far could we go down if we wanted to mess with that parking area?
well, if you went down to what is, I think was being recommended by, like if you did Councilman Trevillion's recommendation, you'd have about 4 to 4.5 feet of parking. And 4 to 4.5 feet, you are going to have the windrow in your sidewalk. You'll be plowing snow this high.
That's what we have today, though. We've had that for 20 years.
Right.
What's the parking area today then, right now? Do we know what?
It's 9.5, 10 feet.
Depends on where you live.
It does depend on where you live, but from First to 50th, for the most part, except for the area between, there's 10-foot lanes between 50th and Valley West, so that's a lot narrower. I know that for a fact because I walk it every day. It's only about 6 feet, and I got hammered by a school bus driving by on that when there was snow that day, and freaked my dog out, freaked me out. I got plastered from head to toe because they had a car in alongside of them, and they couldn't move over because there was a car there. It's darn school buses.
Yep.
Okay,
Can't trust them.
all right. Okay, let's go through, so we've got two different options that you're saying. It's a four lane, 12, 11, 12.
That would be what I would recommend.
With what parking? 9.5 parking still?
Right.
9.5 parking. And at that point, there's no right turn lanes.
Correct.
There's also
You'd need
no-
about between 4 and 5 feet from every property owner from First to 50th, which is about 240 property owners.
Okay, 4 to 5 feet.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
We're all about safety though, right? So it shouldn't really matter about how many property owners, we should be more concerned about safety.
Right, and I believe, our engineering staff believes that the recommended option is the safest option, far and beyond a 4-lane option. You'll have faster drivers, you will not fix the left turn lane, or the left turn lane crashes. You will not fix the rear end crashes. There'll be people stopped in the through lane, and you will still have those, and they will be eliminated or close to eliminated with a 2-way left turn lane.
Okay.
And
Okay, Greg, your preference, 4-lane, 3-lane, what that Brian has recommended.
Oh, do you want to start with me?
I'm going to start with you.
All right,
We're gonna go
well-
right down through, and we're going to wrap this up. We're not making decisions tonight. We're trying to get consensus on the direction we're going. After this, we would end up having, another public hearing or some council action that we would take to go forward after this?
Well, we would begin, we would start the design
Okay,
based on the recommendation from tonight.
okay,
And then we would begin acquiring
Acquiring
right-of-way
properties.
based on that
yep.
information.
And you'd start from 19th and go to,
Yeah, or just outside of 19th and just outside of 23rd.
okay, 4-lane, 3-lane, 2 different options.
One,
we
I
talked about.
think it's really, really important to understand that if we do that 4-lane option, it's going to take a lot of right-of-way. Am I right on that?
I'm sorry,
If we do the 4-lane option, it's going to take a lot of right-of-way.
significantly more.
It's going to take quite a bit. Well, obviously, it'll take more if you have 4 11-foot lanes and even a couple 12, whatever. It's going to literally take more lanes than 3 12-foot lanes because that's 36 versus 45. I mean, that's going to take more. And so if there's an understanding among the community that they would like the 4-lane, understand that will necessitate the taking of more land.
We haven't seen a 4-lane plan.
It's right in front of you. This is it. Well, I guess this is just 19 to 20 seconds, so.
It would be the same across the
It
whole
would
city.
be.
What you see right there is essentially what it would be across the whole city. or from first to 50th.
4 lanes, and they're 10 feet wide.
Oh, and-
NACDA, he's citing SUDAS, but there's other things out there, NACDA and the Green Book, that say 10-foot wide streets are perfectly fine, and in some cases, preferable. He's citing SUDAS because he loves this SUDAS.
Eric, let me just share something really quick. Just for me, I will not support anything less than 11 feet for these lanes, and I'll tell you why. We have a 12, we have 11, we have a 10. We have a 12, 11, a 10, and the average obviously comes out to 11, right? Fine. But then I speak with the West Des Moines Community School District, and they say, please make them 12 feet. And then I speak with DART, and they say, please make them 12 feet. And then I am driving home today from Valley, where I teach, on the 10-foot portion, and there's a truck coming, and I'm in the left lane, the truck's in the left lane coming this way, and I'm like, just a little bit over. And because trucks use it, because city buses use it, because school buses use it, I will not support an option that's less than 11 feet. Now, if there's a 12, 12, 11, 11, something like that, and there's a foot for the curve, we can talk about that. I don't want to get into inches and feet, but I just want to let you know that based on conversations with school bus drivers, the West Des Moines Community School District, where I work, and understanding DART, all of those things make me not support 11, which means if we're going to go a 4-lane option, it will take right-of-way from everybody. I like the 4-lane option. I do. I love the 4-lane option for a lot of reasons. I could be willing to be okay with the 3-lane too, but that's going to require, and it's right here. And number 2, this option requires more right-of-way acquisition from the entire First Street to 50th Street corridor. It requires more pavement, all right? It might increase the speed, understand. If we shrink that parking area down to 4 feet, which might be impossible because that's going to cause a lot of problems. So understand, if we go through the 4-foot lane option, it might be very, 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 there might be some consequences in the terms of right-of-way acquisition for everybody. And because, as I said, I'm not going to support anything less than 11 feet. Councilman Trevilian proposed the 10. I do not support that. I support at least 11 for those reasons, because school buses. So
you're either
if
four,
I would
11-foot
prefer
lanes.
that, but if it means taking right of way and everybody's going to be angry, then that's going to be trouble for me. So
Okay.
So you're at 3?
So you're at 3 12-foot lanes.
I like the 11 feet, 4-foot lanes. I'm sorry, 4-foot lanes. I like the 4 lanes, but with the understanding that it's going to take a lot of right of way.
Okay, so you are for
Which one are you supporting?
4,
11-foot lanes.
yes.
Okay,
Even though it's gonna take more right away.
And if that's the way it comes down, but I'm sure we'll hear from people. And then we can hear a design. As you said, we haven't seen the design for First to 50th. What's it going to take? And this current process, this current land right here, Alicia, I hear from you. Shane, I hear from you. It takes so much of your land. And that brings me great concern too. So I don't know if there's ways to deal with that. But the specific takings of land on the north side near 22nd Street and the south side near 19th Street, those things, and Brian, we've talked about this before, like that stake that was in the yard. Did we find out about the stake, by the way, at all?
We did, and,
Yeah.
and that was done for the property owner at the corner of 19th and Ashworth. And there's multiple stakes around there, so it's hard to tell. They weren't written on, and they weren't done with a survey. They weren't done with survey equipment. They were done with like pulling a tape from curb and things like that. So they're not, dead on accurate. And so they didn't write anything on them because they're just trying to give people an idea.
Who's they?
Shive Hattery went out
We
with.
met with that homeowner, he was there, why we did it, marked them out, explained what each one was.
okay, so you're for 4 11-foot lanes.
With the caveat that there's a lot of consequences to that people need to understand. So that's me.
4 11-foot lanes. Matt?
I wish it was as easy as, well, I prefer option 1. I wish it was that easy.
3 12-foot lanes. Okay?
No, no, hold on. I'm saying, I wish it was that easy. It's not that easy.
Okay.
We've got tens of millions of dollars. We've got multiple different perspectives here. And I guess before I'm going to put my foot down or my, position out there, I need to think through it more. You talk about property rights. Property rights are very important. Frankly, it's why I had that question on the very initial item that we had tonight on the gentleman at the corner of whatever it was on Grand Avenue. So, listen, I sat down with engineering staff, Brian, Eric, everybody. We went through some pretty detailed analysis. You've got, I don't know if it's AI or machine learning or whatever the, analytics that you ran on there. We've got Federal Highway Transportation Administration guidelines, and all these things point to safety. I'm hearing, Shane, I hear what you're talking about in terms of the hierarchy of data. I guess I need to get a little bit more familiar with the hierarchy of data here if I'm going to be asked to weigh in on a 57 million, 70 million, whatever it is, dollar project. I've got concern about where buses are going to be traveling, how they're going to stop. I mean, we can work with the school district, but you can't work with the school district about starting school at 10 a.m. as opposed to 8 a.m. You look at the delivery vehicles. I don't doubt that they're probably going to park in the middle there, right? And how's that going to look? And I know we've talked about it before, pilot projects. The city of Des Moines thought it was a great idea to put in bike lanes in the East Village and put all these cones up. And guess what? They reversed course. City of Des Moines thought it was great to do one-way streets in certain areas, and guess what? They reversed course. And the last thing I want to do is come up with a great idea and reverse course. And I know you've got a runway of 4 to 6 years, and then we got to back out of that in terms of design and in terms of bidding and in terms of implementation. And we're probably pretty close to the point to hit that 4 to 6 year mark. But as I sit here right now, I've got concerns across the board, and I don't yet have a comfort level.
Okay, you need to make a decision. Where are you? You at 3 12-foot lanes, or are you at 4 11-foot lanes like Greg? We're trying to give direction to our staff to come up with a design, so we got to come up. I understand it's a difficult decision, and it's almost a no-win. Okay, I understand that. People of property are going to have to be acquired to be able to do the road and everything else. I mean,
well, okay.
I guess maybe there's another option. You just want to repave it and just leave it alone?
No, I guess I don't. I guess I would look at the 11-lane option that Councilman Hudson.
4-lane?
I'm sorry, the 11-foot option for the 4 lanes. All right. I don't think that we've seen that built out, and I guess I would look at it, but I'm not going to say, hey, I want to go with the 3-lane option when I haven't looked at the 11-foot option in detail.
Okay, so we've got 1 4-lane, 11 feet, nothing for you.
Correct.
Okay? I'm not going to go on this long diatribe. I think we've heard a lot of information. I trust our engineering staff. I hate that we're having to take property from people. I wish that there was a better alternative. This is the safest, best standard that will move the traffic, that will provide for the most safety. I'm supportive of the 3 12 lanes, and I'd also like to see what we can do to reduce that parking, to make that something more narrow, to try to get even further off of people's land. So I'd go 3 12-foot and reduce that parking space, fully understanding that, it could be an issue with snow, with snow removal. Maybe that's the least of people's concern. I'm sure it's not when it's negative 30 out, but that's what I'm saying. 3 12-foot, reduce that parking down as far as we can do it, working with the residents. Okay, Renee? And I don't have a vote, by the way, so.
Yeah, and I want to say, Mayor, I really appreciate you. You could sit here and do absolutely nothing because you don't get to vote. And you could sit here and say, I'm going to not do anything because I know whatever decision I make is going to maybe frustrate some folks that are out there. So I appreciate you taking a stand. I really do. And I want to say, as late as it is, it's worth every minute to be here to listen and to hear your concerns. This is citizen engagement at its finest, because you come out because you care about your property You care about safety. You care about the roads. You care about it all. So for that, I want to say thank you. I see senior citizens here. My mom is in bed by 7:45 every night, okay? 80-year-old woman. And we have senior citizens that are here because they care. It's late at night, but they are going to be here to voice their concerns. And I'm not trying to make overgeneralizations. I'm recognizing that, you know, as we get older, sometimes we like to tuck it in a little bit sooner when it's dark out and rainy and cold. But, you know, when you are elected as an elected official, sometimes you don't have every little answer that you need. And everything does not come in a neat package, whereby which you have to make a decision when everything is resolved. I have to make a decision based on what I'm hearing on both sides. And unfortunately, tonight's decision is probably one of the most difficult ones I will have made in my 5 years so far on City Council. But if this role was easy, everybody'd be sitting on this seat. If this role was easy, where we could make a decision to please everybody in Utopia, we'd have everybody on this seat. But it's not easy. And I'm going to say that we have staff that at some point we have to say, what do you think is best when you add up 120 years of experience that Brian's got to work with? At what point as an elected official that supports also the staff do I say, I've got to listen to the wisdom and the advice? While it may not be perfect, but it account for something. And so I look at all of this. I am not an engineer. I'm an HR executive. So roads and streets and stuff isn't necessarily my strongest suit, but I know enough to be able to listen to certain things, and you all countered it. I'm going to have to go with the 12-foot and whatever, with some of the same kinds of considerations that the mayor wants to do on that parking, try to take as less as we can. Let's really try to take as less property as we can. And let's be sensitive to some of the areas that they've talked about. But I got to make a decision at some point. Otherwise, we're dragging this out every time. 2 weeks to defer. What more are we going to get? What more information are we going to get? I got to listen to the data that's been presented and make a difficult decision. And I want to say, of the two choices, I need to do the wider, with some of the considerations that the mayor has said. I say that going home tonight, that I know it might disappoint you, but I want you to know, as I look you in the eye, I'm authentically trying to make a decision, as difficult as this is, and not keep putting the down the road, kicking the can down the road. It's painful, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But I'm elected on this body to make a decision, the good and the bad, and the in-between. Let's get with this family here that talked about how much is going to be taken so they know exactly, because it seems ambiguous. So, Brian, I'm going to implore you to get with this family, this young lady that spoke, because she doesn't have any clue exactly how all of this is, or there seems to be some differences. I need her to know exactly. We owe her that.
We will do that.
So for that, I'm going to need to make the decision to do the 3-foot with all the other considerations. And I thank you for being here tonight. And I hope you'll understand how difficult this decision is. But you elect me to make a decision. And that's what I'm going to choose to do tonight.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman. Okay.
My
Councilman
turn.
Boats.
I'm not going to repeat anything anybody else said, but I appreciate all the comments that everyone gave. Ultimately, this doesn't impact my ward directly, but it's still the most difficult decision I've had, right? You're not in my ward, but you're still my neighbors. And so this is gut-wrenching. I'm going to choose the option that I think requires the least amount of land acquisition from y'all, which is the 3 lanes. I know it's not perfect. I appreciate Mr. McClinton's arguments and all the research you did with that. I appreciate, 1021st Street I think that leaves you the most yard as possible. This decision's awful to make. So I'll leave it at that. I support the 3 lanes.
Okay, so, and I don't count. So we've got 2 that are the 3-lane, 12-foot option. I think if we can do something on the parking, and we've got 1 that's 4-lane, 11-foot. Kevin wants 4-lane as well, 10 and a half feet. So it's, staff, I mean, we're basically down to 2-2 as far as 4 and 3 lanes go, and with Matt abstaining.
I want to be clear, I'm not abstaining, but, Renee, when you talked about we need more information, some of it's a bit vague. I can't make decisions based upon vague information, okay? And so
Matt, that's between you and your citizens here. Don't worry about what I've said.
I guess that's what I'm.
Talk to the citizens.
Well, what I'm saying is I need
Because it is an
more
abstention.
information, okay? And if I'm going to make a decision that's going to cost a taxpayer $57 million or $60 million or $70 million or whatever it is, and it's going to impact your property rights and it's going to impact safety, I need something more clear. That's where I stand.
So we have an abstention and
Okay.
3 other positions.
Well,
May I just say one more thing, Mr. Mayor? I'll make it quick.
sure.
The last thing I will say, I don't like the idea. I think Councilman Lote said it nicely. This 3-lane option is just less property acquisition. It just is. And I really, really like that about this. But at the same time, it seems like so many people in West Des Moines would really prefer the 4-lane option. But if it comes down to the fact that we go up and down Ashworth Road, much like we did 2 months ago, 3 months ago, now that 10-foot sidewalk, that was going to eat a lot more than this 4-lane option, I assume. Would it not eat quite a bit more than the 4-lane option? Maybe that 10 feet of right-of-way or 8 feet of right-of-way was going to be just over the line. And maybe when people are like on the north side, oh, I'll give up 3 feet. People on the south side, oh, I'll give up 3 feet. If that's the case up and down the line, I'll give up 5 feet. I'll give up 5 feet. It's not that?
No, it's, I talked to a lot of people during the red sign era
Yes.
of Ashworth Road.
Oh, yes, of course,
Yeah.
the red sign era.
And
Some of them are still in the line.
it's my phone number. But I talked to a lot of people about that, and I'll tell you that there's multiple people along there that, one specifically I'm thinking of, where the way the grades are and the way everything is, they would be adamantly against taking any right-of-way whatsoever. That is why it's the least expensive option, the 3-lane, and it is the least amount of right-of-way. We got to pay for all of that right-of-way. So that is another.
Yep.
I don't have the number on that, but that is a big number. So everybody accuses us of not being good stewards of our taxpayer money. We get that a lot. The 3-lane option is being the best stewards of the taxpayer dollars and getting a solution that works the best and decreases accident rates. That is what your professionals are telling you. So,
And I know that because not everybody in this room knows my 17-year-old just wrecked my car at a corner on Ashworth last Thursday. True story. So
Why we approved a new Porsche dealership tonight, Doug.
I
we have to
guess,
update our slide.
I am not buying him a
wrapping
Porsche.
this up, I would say let's put this on a council agenda and let's have a vote, and we'll put the 4-lane, 11-foot option. We'll put the 3-lane, 12-foot option with reducing that parking as reasonably far as we can to get even further off people's properties. And we'll have those 2 on there, and if people want to make other, motions, if those don't pass, we'll make other motions, and I'd say get that on the next council agenda, and guys, I'd say show up again to that. And we'll take a vote.
If you're a 17-year-old getting in an accident on Ashworth, ours was EP true. And so, big intersection of EP true and Valley West. So we're actually bringing EP true back into this. But any direction from the north, from the south, and just, I really wish the safety concern of the 3-lane with the right turning lane in some areas was taken into consideration a little bit heavily. And by the way, my name is Michaelin.
Oh,
Just
okay.
put that on the record. So,
Okay.
yeah, I know, I didn't feel like that was answered at all,
Okay.
besides the belief that this will work.
Okay.
I'm happy to hear more once we adjourn. I'll stay for a couple minutes to hear from other folks, by the way.
So what I need to know is before the next, are we pushing this to the next council meeting?
Put it on the next council agenda, and we're going to take a vote. We're going to have the two different options, the four-lane, 11-foot wide, or we're going to have the three 12-foot wide lanes, and I want to figure out what we can do on the parking. And I guess I would say probably the same thing's true on both with the parking.
I would, Brian, I think I know what you're about to say. I would say go forward with the application. If it's
Okay.
due January 6th, I will add my third vote to move forward with that application, just so you know.
And then, it's an application for STBG funding, and it was actually on the agenda today in the consent agenda, and it was
Yeah.
voted for. So
Exactly.
it's that, and the other thing I just want to know is, I think Councilman McKinney, I'll need to meet with you between now and then to go over whatever it is that you need, answers for, or maybe shoot me an email with anything that you have that I can try to answer for you in advance of that meeting, and we can talk about it.
Yeah, I think it'd be really good to know what the proposal is, because I'm hearing we're going to further reduce parking. We're going to maybe go to 411s instead of a 12, 11, 11, 12. What I'm hearing is just, I need to have an understanding of what is actually out there.
I can.
And cost.
And cost, what is the cost of the right of way?
We're gonna know all the way down the road how much right of way is gonna be taken and purchased from us. They're gonna notice, all of those residents, that this is happening on the road in 2 weeks.
That'll have to happen.
And we're not going to be able to get,
The 3-lane proposal, the letter that came out to everybody.
That's right.
And now you're talking 4 lanes, you're gonna take.
But that's a different decision. That's down the road a little bit. Now, it would be planned, but we can talk here in a second, but.
Those were the options. Kevin wanted 4 10-foot lanes, 10.5-foot lanes. You're looking at 4 11-foot lanes.
With the understanding that it's going to take a lot of right of way, and I don't think people will necessarily be happy about it, but.
Okay, do you think Kevin meant taking land from residents on both sides of the road, or do you think he meant keeping it as it is?
he meant keeping it as it is. I had a meeting with Kevin. I know what Kevin's idea is. The problem is you have parking that is not much more than the width of this lectern, and you can't fit utilities into that area. It's just, it's impossible.
But if you have 11, 10, 10, 11, you have 7 feet of parking from each side. You take 3 feet from each side.
I've made my recommendation on what I believe it is, and I'm not going to change my recommendation.
Of course.
Based on anything you say or anything they say.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Okay, well, that's his recommendation. We can go for it or against it. That's all
They can do
he's saying.
something different.
So-
It's their decision.
All
I'm
right.
giving my recommendation. I'm not changing it.
Yeah.
Because that is what I feel is the right thing to do. And that is what I'll put my license that I've had for over 20 years on.
Okay, so we're going to have it on the next council agenda. We're going to vote, and we're going to move forward. Adjourned.
Thank you, everybody.